Happy New Year's Eve everyone! Welcome to another Exos Heroes video, and as you can see in the background, today we're going to talk about FC Talia. We'll give you our thoughts on whether or not you should be pulling for her, and if you do decide to pull for her, how you should be using it, and where does she fit in the game. But before we go any further, we just want to make a quick announcement. As we're edging closer to the new year, and as we're edging closer to the 1k subscriber milestone, we would like to take the opportunity and the time to thank all of you for the support in 2020, and we'll be doing a giveaway in the near future. So stay tuned for an announcement video coming out in the next couple of days. We'll give you all the details of the giveaway in that video, so stay tuned. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get started. So first, I have to say, FC Talia visually is probably my favorite character out of the entire Blooming Someday string of fatecore. I don't know what it is, but this oriental look just really resonates with me. And I don't know if any of you guys watching this video plays League of Legends, but to me, for some reason, FC Talia reminds me of a character called Karma. And I really like the way Karma looked, and I really like the way Talia looks too, so it's really nice. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about the substance, right? We're here to talk about how good she is. So let's get started with the skills. So let's start with her A1, Absolute Prophecy. It requires 1 mana, so very low mana cost. It deals 150% damage to one target, and if it does land, it will heal one ally by 29% of Talia's maximum health. And that's a pretty solid healing amount given that Talia will have pretty high HP compared to most of the other classes. And obviously it has a cleanse buff as well that cleanses all debuffs and damage over time effects from the healed target. So again, the cleanse is also tied to you landing the attack and healing the ally. And lastly, there is also a new passive being added, which is the mark that we're seeing here. It afflicts all enemies except the target with Prophecy of Decline mark. And if the target marked with Prophecy of Decline attacks Talia, reduces damage received by 50%. Now, this is a very solid addition to the skill, because what it does is it helps you to stay alive longer. As we all know, one of the things that we want to do with this support, especially when it comes to a healer, is to keep them alive as long as possible, so they can do their job by providing heal for the rest of your team. So anything that can help them staying alive is really solid. What you want to do is to use this skill on a low damage target to get the most benefit. And more importantly, Prophecy of Decline also synergizes really well with Dimensional Leap, which we all know is a trademark of this line of fatecore. Because Dimensional Leaps helps you to avoid getting hit, while Prophecy of Decline reduces damage taken when you do get hit, so the two works really well in combination. But keep in mind that Talia has low attack speed, which means you won't get this skill off in time during the first round. So you will need to either depend on her innate tankiness to survive the first round, or have to rely on other heroes to help you reduce the damage, such as Tantalo. But overall, it's a pretty solid skill. Now let's move on to her A2, which is Nature's Judgment. And this requires 4 mana, it has a burst active, and what it does is it deals 127% damage to all enemies. And it heals all allies by 24% of Talia's maximum health when this attack hits. So again, similar to her A1, the healing is dependent on you landing the skill. But because it is an AoE attack, it means all you have to do is to land one hit on one enemy to be able to get this heal off. So it's much more reliable in that sense. It still has a cleanse passive, which is nice. And it has another mark attached to this skill now, which is if the healed target's health is 50% or more, it grants a revision mark. And how revision marks works is it's attached to a new passive that Talia has called Rewind. So how Rewind works is whenever the health of an ally marked with revision falls below 50%, it heals the target by 30% of the target's maximum health. But it removes revision marks from everybody. Not just the target itself, but also everyone else. So in a sense, it's solid. I would love it if the revision mark is only removed from the person that's getting healed. That would make this a little bit more substantial because everyone who drops low will constantly get healed, but that's not the case here, so that's something to keep in mind. In reality, you only will get this off once per use of your A2. But still, it's a pretty solid passive off-turn healing that comes whenever an ally is in need, so it's pretty good in that sense. One other thing we want to point out is that her A2 does have pretty high mana cost, so you might have difficulty using it consecutively if you're not running with multiple frontline heroes, or trying to get this off during the first round, so that's another thing to keep in mind. But overall, it's a pretty solid skill that does a lot of things and a pretty substantial amount of healing. Lastly, let's move on to the passive, and let's talk about it here. There's really a lot going on here. Obviously, you have the base first aid 3 passive here that grants healing whenever an ally falls below 20%. That's very solid. You still have the mana gains attached to it, which is solid, but not the best when it comes to gaining mana. On top of that, Talia obviously keeps the Dragon Knight Blessing passive as well as the Head Dragon Knight passive, which really comes in handy because for all the Head Dragon Knights out there, they're really not one that stands out above the rest. But that's not the case anymore with FC Talia. Given her substantial healing prowess, it really makes her probably the best Head Dragon Knight choice and someone that you can bring on any day of the week. And now if we go down just a little bit more here is where we get to the meat of the passive, right? So we start with the Dimensional Leap. We all know what it does. Increases dodge for self by 40. That's very solid, as we mentioned before. Works really well when you want to keep someone alive. And especially with Talia's A1 now have the damage reduction, the combination of the two just works perfectly. The attack increase by 1000 is okay, does help you to get more damage out, given that both Talia's A1 and A2 does damage. So it's there as a supplemental damage buff, but obviously it's not what we care about the most. Now let's move on to the next, which is Guardian of Prophecy, and this is a very solid passive. A 20% defense increase is really good. Although it won't help you against elemental damage, it works on just about everything else. And especially for story content, for PvE content, it's really useful given that you won't be taking elemental damage in those places. And right after that, we have Overturned Fate. 2 times around when an ally is damaged and their health falls below 30%, heals the ally with the most missing health by 60% of the target's maximum health. And 60% is a lot, right? So it will bring the ally to at least 60% or more. So as long as you don't get one shot, this is a really good source of healing for the rest of your team. And the fact that it happens 2 times around is really good too. Overall, a very solid and very reliable skill, especially given that Talia has lower attack speed. It can come in handy during the first round in PvP. And lastly, we have the Rewind. As we already talked about it before, this is yet another off-turn healing that's tied to her A2, and it's pretty consistent. 30% of target's maximum health again is a pretty good amount. Obviously, the revision mark needs to be refreshed by using Talia's A2, so that's something to keep in mind. So compared to Overturned Fate, it's probably not as good, but it's there as another source of healing, so why not? Now, with all that being said, what does this mean, and how does Talia compare to some of the best healers in the game currently? So in our opinion, there are 2 top tier healers in the game. That's going to be FC Lepine and Dorka. So versus FC Lepine, Talia packs more healing, but lacks other crucial utilities such as turn reset and revive. In PvP, healing is less effective at the moment due to the prominence of Ramga, as we all know, who has anti-healing and can really shut down a team that's trying to stall out the fight by having a substantial amount of healing. So that's something that really dampens her value, and not having other utilities kind of hurts her as well. She can still be an asset during tag team weeks, obviously for your second and third team, but FC Lepine is probably still the better option as the pure PvP healer if you do want to bring one. Now on the other hand, versus Dorka, the 2 shares a lot in common. Both have a lot of passive off-turn healing that can keep your team healthy throughout the course of a fight. Dorka has the advantage over Talia in terms of damage and mana generation from Grace of Mana. Talia, on the other hand, has the advantage in terms of being able to do chunkier heals whenever an ally is in need, and being just a tankier and more survivable unit, given that she is a support and has more innate HP. If you're looking for a pure healer, Talia would be the better of the 2. In particular, given that she has a Head Dragon Knight passive, we believe that Talia should replace Dorka in most of our dragon hunting teams as a main healer. But outside of that, the 2 are pretty much interchangeable. So now, is she a must pull? No, but she is very good for those who doesn't have Dorka, or those who are looking to actively participate in the tag team battles and wants to build out a very strong second or third team. She doesn't deserve a full PD in our opinion, as we talked about this before. We only recommend you to go full PD when the banner is a general. So in this case, you really should just stop whenever you get her. But as we mentioned before, she looks great. She's got a lot of things going on with her kids that synergize really well with each other. She is one of the top 3 healers in our opinion, so definitely worth some investment to get her. But with that being said, that's going to be it for us on FC Talia. She looks really good. We are going to be pulling for her this weekend, so stay tuned for that. And more importantly, we hope you enjoyed this episode and learned a couple of things. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. We have more Exos Heroes and Genshin Impact video coming out in the near future, so stay tuned for those. And again, Happy New Year, and we'll see you in the next episode and next year very soon. Bye bye.